Welcome to DKLA. I'm your Laya, and we have a fascinating guest, Justin Felde, joining us. We'll be diving into his incredible journey from working in correctional facilities and psychiatric hospitals to living in Thailand. Get ready for an intriguing discussion as we get to know our neighbor, Justin, and explore his unique experiences. Welcome to the show, Justin. Hi everyone, today we are with Justin Felde. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Justin Felde. I am about 40 years old. I have two daughters, both grown. And I grew up in rural Montana, population 300, and I just like to do things.
Great. Where can our listeners connect with you online?
If you'd like to check us out, I have a podcast myself. I do it with a buddy of mine that I met in Thailand, and we have the Pillow Pals podcast, and we just have a lot of fun doing it. We kind of talk about life in Thailand and kind of different cultural perspectives, because I grew up in the United States and he grew up in South Africa, and we kind of just talk about our differences and our similarities. It's a pretty awesome podcast.
I think so. Well, let's start. Our theme today is get to know my neighbors. And you've had quite a diverse career path. Can you tell us what drew you to work as a correctional officer in a... Well, Justin, you've had quite a diverse career path. Can you tell us what drew you to work as a correctional officer in a state psychiatric hospital and at a children's group home? What inspires you to do what you do or keep doing what you're doing?
So I started out, I think when I first started working as a correctional officer, I was 19 years old. And it was one of those kind of things that it was a who you know kind of thing, where the guy that I had been working with had suggested that I apply at the prison here in Montana. And it's like I wasn't so sure about it. And once I applied and started working out there, I fell in love with the job. I took, and it didn't pay very much. So I took a side gig working with kids in a group home. And I kind of got that reinforcement of like, oh, you do so well with kids and you do really well with kids. And, I always took that to heart. And then I raised two daughters kind of on my own. And just that was always a common theme, like, oh, you work so well with kids, and I just kind of listened to that. I then while I was working at the group home, they had a psychiatrist that came in, and he kind of gave me some advice. He said, hey, if you take this path, you can become a therapist if you want. And at the beginning, so I went back to school and got my degree. I got a social work degree, and I just kind of stayed in that field for a long time, working with kids in a group home, and I loved it. And that was kind of where I was going to go. But my heart was at doing international work. So I kind of put my applications out there. And then I got a job in Thailand. But this was after I worked at the psychiatric hospital. For me to do I had to do field work. And I was lucky enough to get paid for my field work. So when I worked at the hospital, it was like an intern kind of thing. It's called a practicum. And I was there for 9 months and did my practicum, got my degree, and then moved to Thailand and was teaching English to kids in Thailand there. So I always kind of kept my heart in with the kids, but in a different capacity for sure.
It's beautiful. I told you I volunteer with kids, and when I started, many people from my family looked at me. Oh, you told us you don't want to have kids, and you're volunteering with children.
It's easier when they're not your kids, right? Because you can just you can just dump them off. When you're done, you're like, okay, I quit. And you can quit when they're not your kids, you know? So
But they taught me many things, and I can't imagine myself outside of this world. It's really great, rewarding to volunteer with children.
it is very much, especially being
So
able to watch them grow too, because you get to see their growth, and
yeah.
you play a part in that. You can actually see your work go to work. It's working,
Mhm.
so it's nice.
I don't know how about you, but I feel like being part of their lives, and uh, well, it's a great feeling. I don't know how to explain. I
Mhm.
just feel great looking them growing up. So the next question is about your morning routine. What does your morning routine look like, and how does it motivate you for the day?
How does it? Was that last part?
How does it motivate you for the day?
Oh yeah. So my morning routine is pretty basic because I just wake up when I wake up. I usually wake up pretty early naturally for some reason. I was never a morning person until I
Okay.
became an older adult. And for some reason it's just easier to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and start my day. But I always
Oh,
try and keep my morning as tranquil and peaceful as possible. And you always have to have that warm cup of something. And usually it's coffee, it can be tea, but a warm cup of coffee for me, and just, kind of relaxing and just kind of zone out, jump in the nice hot shower and just kind of set my day um, as peaceful as possible. That's how I try and start my morning. And I don't typically use alarms too often. I just naturally wake
um,
up early in the morning, and I don't know why. I'm not complaining, but
oh, I wish I could wake up without alarm.
yeah.
But if I don't set an alarm, I think I'll wake up 10 a.m. Well, and I lost a half of my morning.
Mhm.
uh, well, um, let's talk about your life in Thailand. I see how it brings you enthusiasm. You live
Very
it
much.
for for over a year. What inspired that move, and how did living there impact your perspective on life and your work?
Ooh, that's a really good question. When I first went to Thailand, I was just kind of told, somebody told me that, in Southeast Asia, it's kind of easy to get a job as a teacher as long as you have a degree. And so I started throwing applications out there,
Mm-hmm.
and a vacation to Bangkok turned into a staycation because I was
Mm-hmm.
accepted into the school. I just took the first one that would accept me. And so I just said yes. And I was like, I'm just going to figure this out. And then a month later, I was in there. From the time I decided I was going to go to Thailand and work, I was working there a month later. It was that quick of a turnaround. And some of the biggest takeaways was just the amount of food. I was blown away. Nobody is hungry in that country. Food is so accessible and so, I mean, you can have a fine dining experience, or you can live on street food, which is just as good. I mean, the street, you find a good street food area, and you can find anything you want, and it's always good. Like I I fail to have anything that I just did not like at all. And
Mm-hmm.
they eat weird things there too, like squid eggs and there's like weird things there that I had to try.
Mm-hmm.
Thailand is a Buddhist country, and which is in contrast to like our Christian values here in America. Now, I don't prescribe to any religion myself, but I'm inundated with Christianity, so I know that the best. And kind of learning about Buddhism and Hinduism too, because they're kind of in Thailand, it's almost a mix match of Hindu and Buddhist. And there's some really kind of, in my opinion, wild stories um, that take place in Buddhism. You know, there's like the story of Songkran, you know, where a guy makes a deal, and if he loses, he has to cut off his head. And there's all these kind of bizarre, what I find bizarre beliefs. But on the contrary, I'm sure, you know, I start talking about Christianity and Jesus, you know, being crucified and then resurrected and all this, that would seem quite bizarre to them as well. So it's just what I grew up in. But yeah, I'm more prescribed, you know, learning in Buddhist culture, Zen, and kind of not getting attached to things kind of resonated with me a little bit more. The hospitality down there is much different. Everyone's friendly. The traffic is insane, but it works. Is weird. They, you know, it's in and out, but nobody's honking at each other. No one's angry. I know if you tried to pull a lot of the stuff in America that you can get away with over there, it would not fly at all. It'd just be instant road rage. But I took mini taxis down there, and I never heard anybody get angry at each other. I never seen like on the side of the road, two guys yelling at each other, but you see that pretty frequently here in the States. So the peace, tranquility, and the easy life in Thailand is what I would strive for here in these States. It just doesn't seem like that here anymore. It doesn't seem as relaxed. But I really enjoyed it. I'm going to go back. I'm here in the States temporarily, but I'm definitely, my goal is to land back there for sure.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm curious because I met many Asians, but not necessarily from Thailand. And they celebrate some parties like Easter and Christmas. They are Christian parties.
Yeah, so the Buddhism, or in Thailand, they're very welcoming people. So whomever you may be, you're welcome there. You can be anybody you want, and I'm at least from what I can tell, there's no judgment. And the thing that I really appreciated is I went to a temple, Erewhon Temple, and when you go in there, they have these huge pillars, and in those pillars, they have different stories from different religions. And they just kind of explain what's Christianity, what's Hindu, what's Buddhism, and there was an Islam. It had 4 pillars, and they had all the information about these different religions, and basically explaining how Thai people in the Thai land is very welcoming to all cultures and all walks of life. So I thought they do celebrate Christmas there. I mean, it's not nothing like it's celebrated here with lights and everything. But you go to certain places, you'll see the Santa outfits and the Christmas lights and things, but it's not as frequent. But they definitely celebrate it there, but not Easter. Never saw them celebrate Easter though. That was yeah. But
but they certainly know that it exists because many countries celebrate both parties. And I would ask you the next question, but you answered. Can you share some insights or memorable experiences from your life in Thailand? It would be the question.
Yeah, one of the most memorable was Songkran. It's just it is the most cathartic. It's a big water fight. The entire country gets into a water fight for 3 days. You cannot leave your place without getting wet. So you have to be prepared. Everyone has a squirt gun and everyone is against each other. And it was awesome because I was with my co-host of the Pillow Pals, and we were during Songkran, where we went to the popular areas where everybody was at, and where everyone's just squirting each other with these squirt guns. And he ended up squirting these other 2 guys, and it was a war. It was me and these 2 other guys, but these other guys behind us joined us, and then 2 other guys joined them. So there's like 4 of us. We've never met each other, and we're just all in this water fight against each other, and it was just fun and wholesome. And I compare it to like The Purge, if you've ever seen The Purge, where the movie The Purge, where everybody in America gets 1 day and all crime is legal. They can do anything they want. They can burn down buildings, they can commit murder, all of that. And the thought is that they are able to kind of get this out on that 1 day, and then the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
year it's peaceful. And that's kind of how I felt during Songkran. I felt a lot of relief, and it was just fun, and everybody was laughing, and it was just such a wholesome and pure thing that they do there in Thailand. It's great. And it happens in April. And I recommend everybody check it out because you'll see it's just such a great thing.
Oh, I'll certainly do some research about it because I do enjoy meeting new cultures and new traditions. It's really nice to see the how the other people celebrate some dates, and of course sun cream. I never heard about it.
Yeah, it's great.
And you talked a lot about your co-host. You co-host a podcast with your friend Pierre, where you tackle a wide range of topics. What motivated you to start this podcast, and how do you choose to the subjects you discuss?
Yeah, it's a weird the podcast. I took a lot when I was in Thailand. I felt so relaxed and life was so good that I took on a lot of projects on my own, and I learned a lot of things. Like I started learning how to, make music. So I started doing that, and I wrote a book of short stories. It's a horror book, and I just started taking on a lot of creative projects, and it was just a lot of fun. And when I met Pierre, I was kind of telling him all the stuff that I was doing, and he's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to have a podcast or do something like that." And I was like, "Yeah, do you want to do a podcast?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess," or something like that. I don't even know how it really panned out, but it was something along those lines. Like it was just on a whim. And we were talking about it. We're like, okay, let's do it. And then about 3 days later, we were already publishing things. We already had the introduction going. And then over the course of a couple months, we did 12 episodes. So it was just kind of one of those things where Pierre and I just clicked so well,
Mm-hmm.
and that it just made sense that we worked together on a project. And what makes us work so well is that I kind of work in the background. I'm like editing and creating the images for the cover images on the podcast, and he kind of is like, here's the content for the episodes, and then I just kind of go on, and then he asks the questions and I answer them, and we just kind of have this nice flow to us where it just is a casual conversation but fun, and it's just kind of reflective of our friendship, and it's kind of documents our friendship pretty well too.
This season I'm celebrating 10 years of podcasting.
I know, that's crazy. Congratulations. That's a quite the accomplishment.
Thanks. And I started completely solo. And coincidentally, I was traveling. I was not living in another country. I was just traveling when I had the idea of draining all my creative juices in a in something. I was thinking on many things to show my art, and then I watched 2 movies about underground punk. I don't know why. And then the idea of podcasting came 10 years ago. Things were completely different, and I would like to create something very underground, nothing with single formula, because back that time podcasts were basically radio shows with interviews, and sometimes people telling stories, but no one was singing and telling story in many languages and even creating poems. I think I was one of the first to do it, and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
really happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that was a time when it really not very many people were doing it, you know?
And creative graphics is a passion because I draw since I was 9 years old, and I really wanted to return to drawing back that time. So the podcast I called it my child because it came from my heart, and I saw it growing, and many people not only getting interested in listening, but also now in these last 2 seasons taking part of my podcast. It's
Yeah.
really rewarding to see how it grew up.
Motivating too. It's very motivating when, you see people that appreciate it, and it feels good for sure.
um, um, so you talked a little about your book. You've written a book of 4 short stories
Yeah.
and produced several albums. Can you share more about your creative process? Let's talk first about your book.
Yeah. The book is five five tales that follow you home at night. And there's actually only four. The fifth one is kind of a letter to the reader, and I don't want to spoil it. And the inspiration, I've always been like a horror fan, and the paranormal and the creepy and the macabre and the dark. And I just kind of, wanted to try and I've always been a storyteller too. So I wanted to kind of
Mhm.
mix those two together and see what I could do. And then so I produced this book and I went through Amazon and then published it that way. But it's it's basically about the Edwards family, and Julius Edwards, who is the author of this book, had died. And he was kind of this really creepy, not creepy, but he was just kind of a quiet in solitude kind of person. And when he died, the Edwards family came into his house and they realized that he'd been writing books and poems and philosophies and all these things, drawings, all his life. And his house was just was covered in all these different books, millions and millions of writings that he's done over the years. And as the family started going through those and reading those books, hauntings started happening. And the hauntings were similar to what was happening in the stories that Julius was telling. And he was obsessed with the paranormal and the supernatural. And he started kind of figuring out that there is a direct link between like death or some other kind of paranormal or supernatural forces. And he was able to tap into that. And the family are starting to experience these hauntings. And by publishing this book, they are attempting to kind of dilute these hauntings and kind of pass it out to the masses. So that's kind of that's a spoiler for anybody that was interested. That's a bit of a spoiler. And it comes with music as well. The book has a code in there where you can listen to one of the songs from the story and different things like that. So it's a fun book if you're like really dark. There's a guy carrying around a head in a box. So just be aware of that it is. And there's people. It's dark. So yeah. As far as the music goes, I've always wanted to make albums, and I always wanted to kind of be like a singer or a rapper or something. And, it's just not who I am. I've decided that I will never be that. I'm trying to be something that I'm not, even though I always thought it was really cool to try. So instead, I kind of took a different route where I was like, I've always valued tranquility, peace, and harmony. And so I kind of geared my music towards that. What can I listen to and just sit in the morning and read and drink my coffee? So I made it more for myself than anybody else.
Uh, uh, That's great to hear. Well, I love to make music too, but I also want to make something free. I mean, no obligations of getting famous or getting many
Yes.
plays. I like to make music for myself too. I'm a singer, and I like to sing. I like to sing opera arias. Uh, this is
Oh
not a
wow.
problem,
Wow, that's hard. That ain't easy.
but I love to do it.
Yeah.
I had to stop for a few years, but I miss singing. It's really uh,
Well, why can't you get back into it? Is there a reason that's stopping you from getting back
oh
into it?
yeah. First of all, I started dedicating myself to the graphic designer career, and secondly, my singing teacher, she moved to Portugal.
Oh no. Okay, that's why.
But one day, who knows, I'll return doing singing classes. And I do sing at online karaoke, and it's really great.
Yeah, I do the karaoke thing every once in a while too.
Um,
It's always fun.
so, um, let's talk about solo parenting. Raising two daughters as a solo father is no small feat. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them? And what advice would you give to other single parents?
Oh man, it was hard. At the younger years I did great. The younger years, I was doing well. It was the teenagers, of course. Everyone talks about teenagers and how difficult they are. And in my background in
Mhm,
social work and my experience in group homes, I kind of knew what I was getting into. But even though I had an expectation, it was far worse than I could have ever imagined. And a lot of that was due to my own situation. I think a lot of how my kids responded was a result of how I was responding to them, and so to speak, being normal teenagers, if that makes sense. And, my daughters, I started seeing these behaviors that I thought were kind of destructive or unhealthy, and I started putting them into little boxes and containers and trying to control them, and they're teenagers,
mhm.
and that ain't gonna work. And saying, hey, you cannot go hang out with your friends. They're gonna go hang out with their friends. It doesn't matter what you say. They're gonna sneak out at night or they're gonna do something. And what I learned is that not to try or what I learned is to try and separate my emotions from the situation and just speak matter of factly. And what worked the best for me is when I was doing well financially and I was able to stay home more and I didn't have to work
Mhm,
as much. So one thing I'd like to say to any parent: do not feel too proud to get help because I didn't. And my kids suffered because of that, because I was too proud. I'm a man. I need to take care of my business. I don't need the help. I needed to swallow that pride and accept help because it would have benefited me and my kids. So there's that. So when I was finally able, financially secure enough to kind of slow down a little bit and focus on the relationship with my kids and kind of start kind of detaching my emotions to these situations, I was able to better handle my children a lot better. And I basically just set the boundaries and put the ball in their court. And I would just simply say things like, "Hey, look, I you're smoking weed. I caught you, right? You're 16, you're smoking weed, busted. There's no doubt. Listen, you cannot smoke weed in this house. You cannot. That is not acceptable. And I'm going to tell you that it is not acceptable to smoke weed outside the house. Okay. But if you're going to school and you have good grades and we're not arguing and fighting about getting you up and all these things, and everything's going well, I'm not going to question what you're doing. Okay. And if you're out there smoking weed and it's working for you, go smoke weed. But I guarantee, listen, as soon as you start doing that again, your grades are going to fail. You're not going to get up for school. And it happened 100% of the time, 100% of the time. And she would get busted. And I always laid the ground rules. I said, if you get caught, it is 1 week. 1 week of grounding, period. And if, again, it's 1 month. And then again, I'm taking your phone, and life is going to really suck, you know? And so I let her make the decision. Is your life really worth smoking weed? Is it really worth it? You know, and I would just say it matter of fact. I was like, this is what we agreed on. You know, and I would just stick to my guns, and she would throw a fit and get angry, and I would just be calm. And it worked, you know? And then I was like, when you're ready to talk, we need to talk this out. And most kids in the moment probably can't realize they're being irrational, but after a while and they calm down, just speaking on normal and just having a conversation and seeing it to the end went a long ways with my kids. Nothing went unresolved. We always resolved it. And I always told them, it's going to get messy. There's times when this is not it's going to be bad, you know, but if we see it to the end, it'll bring us closer, you know, and it did. It did. Pandemic was a very, probably one of the best things that ever happened for me. I know for a lot of people, it was a hard time. You know, people had a hard time not working. I was fortunate that our government took care of us, took care of me anyways. I wasn't wanting anything during the pandemic. I felt secure. I felt safe. And I was able to really focus on my life and what I want for my family and what I want for me. And during that time, I worked my ass off to make sure that I provided that life. And I feel like I pretty much did. So thanks. Good. Thanks, COVID. Thank you.
Okay. To me, pandemic was a period of experimentations. I made many experiences because this is my second career, the graphic design career, and I just started in 2019, and I had no idea of what was the career. So I gave myself time to do many experiences in art and graphic design to see what I want and who I am as an artist. So COVID was a positive period in this field. But of course, it was tough to me because I had plans and they paused.
Yeah.
And now I'm restarting.
Well, now you have time. Now you can do them.
Yeah. But while listening to your story with your daughters, something came to my mind. There is something that disturbs me on nowadays parenting. Many parents, I think it happens around the world, they try to buy children's attention with gifts. And they grow up without limits. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because there's something to be said. When I worked at group homes, I worked with kids that had these big behaviors, right? So they're maladaptive, basically those behaviors worked in the home environment and it doesn't work in society. So like a kid might be hungry and they'll be like, Mom, I'm hungry. And the mom just ignores them and keeps ignoring them and ignoring them. So the kid gets angry and throws a fit. I want Doritos, when really we see it as him being spoiled because he wants Doritos. What's really going on is that he isn't eating. The mom isn't buying food. There was Doritos there, and that was the only thing that was to eat. And the only way he would get attention is by throwing a fit. All right. So there's those kids that learn these behaviors that don't work in regular society and they harm other people. Now there's a correlation to these kids that were neglected and abused to kids who grew up in affluent families that never wanted anything. The behaviors are exactly the same. There's no difference because they learn to get what they want by acting out. It's all learned behavior. And there's no difference. They acted exactly the same. You could tell the poor kids because they were thin, or something like that. But if you were in the group home, you wouldn't be able to tell which ones were rich and which ones were poor, only based on what kind of clothes they were wearing. That was it. They acted the same. So yes, you're right. Some of these parents that give their kid whatever they want is doing them a disservice because they don't know what it's like to not want things. And then when they don't get what they want, they don't know how to act. So they act with these big behaviors, loud behaviors that get attention, and then they get what they want. So yeah, I don't think it's a new generation of parents. I think every generation has parents like that, where there's a certain mom or a dad that can't stand their kid being uncomfortable. So they pave the road, this nice golden road for them, and it's easy for them to walk on. And then when they hit a little tiny speed bump, they don't know how to get over it. So, yeah, it's like that.
I can't mention names, but there are people from my extended family that behave like this, and they have my age or just a little bit younger than me. So
Every family has one of those. Every family has one of those. Like might be an old, the oldest brother or the youngest sister. They always have somebody in the family that got treated differently than everyone else, and based on their behaviors, it kind of shows.
Well, let's talk about community and connections. Given your background in different fields and your experiences in different countries, how do you perceive the importance of building a strong community and knowing your neighbors?
Man, I think a really good thing to bring up because I think it is very, very important to have a sense of community and a sense of identity within that community. I think it is vital to being happy. I think it's probably one of the top 3 things you need in your life is a sense of belonging and a sense of community. I think that's the only way you can be happy is by finding that. And, there's a reason why we kind of gravitate to certain people. It's because those are people who we either look like or we share the same ideas, and having somebody to have your back is really important. Nobody's ever done it on their own. Nobody on this planet Earth has ever done it alone or on their own. And there's always had help from somebody else. I don't care what anybody says. You didn't go from rags to riches on your own. Somebody was there to help you. And we need that. I think it is in our basic needs to have a sense of community. And it's really important. And I think the people that have a good community around them, good friends and stuff, are the most happiest and the most productive and most satisfied with their lives.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree with you. I'm an introvert, but I really recognize the this sense of community. We must build a safety net with our neighborhoods, no matter where we live.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, well, uh, this about the theme of this episode. One more time, how do you think your varied life experiences have shaped your relationships with people in your community? And can you share a memorable story about connecting with someone who was a stranger at first?
Hmm. Yeah. So, my experience, you know, oh, the community thing, it seems like I always like to meet new people, and I always like to learn about those people. So I always take a genuine interest in hearing their story, because everybody has a cool story or something they did that was awesome, something they're proud of, something they want to share. Somebody has a passion, and no matter what it is, I always try and take a genuine interest in it. And most of the time, I am interested because I like to learn. So it's kind of easy for me naturally to kind of be surrounded by people who I enjoy, you know. So that being said, it was like in Thailand, for instance, everyone just kind of it just kind of came natural, like, hey, you want to meet so and so, and then I met them, and they're like, hey, I want to introduce you to them, and then it just kept growing and getting bigger and bigger. And then I got to the point where I felt like I was being torn in different places. I was like, oh, trying to keep up with this social circle. I didn't have that here in the States. I just never really, being I hate being political, but I'm a pretty liberal person, and I live in a very conservative state, and deep red state, actually. And it's really, really difficult for me to find people that align with me on ideas. And it's really even more difficult to set those ideas aside. Not for me, because I'm okay not talking about that stuff. But it seems like the political atmosphere here is that it's so charged that everyone feels like they have to get this release out, and they have to talk about all this stuff, that's going on in America. Whereas I'm more like, I can take it or leave it. I think they're important to discuss, but only in a productive manner. And sometimes it just doesn't feel that way when you feel like you're at opposition, So I didn't have that here, and going to Thailand and being able to put that out to the side was a heaven send for me. It was a heaven send. I don't think I answered the question. I feel like I kind of rambled on there for a minute. So I know there was two parts. What was the second part of that question?
Well, can you share a memorable story about connecting with someone who was a stranger at first?
Yeah, so I think for me, when I first went to Thailand, of course, everybody was a stranger to me. And, the school that I worked in, we had somebody from Iran, from Africa, South Africa, England, where else? Germany. We had Russians there. Every walk of life. And France, and Thai people, of course. And it was cool. It was freaking awesome to me, just seeing all these different people. And then when I got invited out one night, because on Friday nights a lot of the people would go out and have a beer or two at this local golf course, right? And I got invited. And I remember when I went there, I'm sitting there looking, and I'm like, we have a Russian, we have a Filipino, we have an American, we have a French guy, we have a Thai lady, a Chinese lady, an English guy, and I'm like, we're all here as one. Like, we're not looking at each other as a Filipino or an American. We're looking at each other as friends, or we had a sense of community, and we were all walks of life with all different abilities. And everybody had to speak English because that was the only language that everybody knew as one, which comes natural to me. and everyone we all talked. It was just like a big friendship, and from all different cultures, and there was no tension. Nobody had any tension. It was just relaxed and everyone just having fun. And that was the most memorable. I remember just sitting back and just thinking, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. Because I got to learn a lot about different things, like different superstitions, like French, if you get like a baguette and it's upside down, that's considered bad luck. He would actually go over there and turn it over so it's sitting right side up because it's bad luck. And there's all these little quirks and different beliefs and cultural things that was just so fascinating to me. It was great.
Well, this is my mission with my podcast too.
I like that. I really like that you're trying to provide a platform to kind of share different cultural or different beliefs and different people, all walks of life. I'm really glad to see that because that's what I live for. I just love that kind of stuff.
Well, I really turned off my beliefs and political beliefs too. Yes. And lend my ears and hear many stories from people all around the world. And well, I came into a conclusion until this present moment that we are all humans. We feel the same. We cry the same. We laugh the same. And it's beautiful. Okay, we have some cultural differences, but the feelings, the wishes, they are basically the same.
Down the deep foundational human essence is there in everybody. Yeah. Every culture has this basic humanness to them that is everyone shares. It's everywhere, and it's good and bad. Corporate corruption is very much present in Thailand as it is here. Political corruption is the same everywhere you go. Good and bad, but mostly I think people's hearts are in the right place, no matter where you're from.
I'm sure. Well, now let's go to our lightning Q&A. It's not so quick. The questions are quick, but the answers.
Yes.
What's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, my biggest failure. I try not to look at anything that I do as a failure. There's always a learning experience as long as you learn from it. If you're not continuously doing the same thing over and over again and getting in, harming other people or getting yourself in trouble, as long as you're learning from it, it's never a mistake, but I can look at my life and say, hey, I could have been better in this way. And we can say that was a mistake, or a regret or whatever. And most of it stems from my parenting. There was so much more. There's a lot more things that I wish I could have done differently. But at the same time, had I done them differently, who knows how my kids would have turned out. And I'm very proud of my kids right now, so I don't want them any other way. So everything that came out the way it did is as a result of me or whatever, so I don't say anything's a failure. I always try and look at it as a learning experience. It's just something, nobody's going to jump on a bike and fall down and be like, oh, I failed, and then never do it again. Some people do that, but you don't look at riding a bike as a failure because you fell down 100 times. You don't see it as a failure. You say, I'm riding a bike, and that's how I view life, as long as you learn something from it. Hell, even if you didn't get on that bike, you wouldn't say I failed at riding a bike. You just say it's not for me. I didn't like it. It doesn't have to be a failure. So I try not to look at that way.
Me neither. But to me, it took a few years of therapy to come to this conclusion.
Yeah, fair enough. Yes, fair enough. Yeah.
Who are the most influential people in your life?
There's some people influenced me in ways that, when people ask that question, they're like, who influenced you the most? And they're like, oh man, Carl Sagan, because he was such a good guy, and he learned about the cosmos, and he did so much for space exploration and all that. And yes, those guys are a source of inspiration. But for me, it's a kind of a tragedy, really. My grandfather, when he died,
Mhm.
I looked at him as he was a very masculine guy, and he was in the Navy, and he was kind of hardcore, and he was hardcore, I should say. And he traveled, and he did these great things with his life. He died a millionaire, and he did something really, really crappy when he died. And he basically took my mom out of the will and left everything to his one biological daughter, and left the rest of the family to fend for themselves, basically. Not fend for themselves, but took them out of the will. And I saw what that did to my mom. And my youngest daughter I adopted, and he adopted my mom. And I told myself, I will never, ever do that to anybody in my life, ever. Like, I will never, ever treat anybody like he treated my mom when he died, because he just took her out right out of the will for no reason. His reason was because she didn't call him enough, even though she was taking care of him, months before he died. She was doing all the in-home care stuff, and he let her do that knowing she wasn't in the will. So it was really, really shitty. I mean, just to be blunt. And I swore to God that I'd never want to be the cause of someone's anguish because of that. So that was one influential thing that really, really sat with me. Another influential person, is like the humanitarian or the humanists of the world, Carl Sagan and Mr. Rogers, that just saw the good in everything. Those guys are a source of inspiration to me as well.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear one more time about family, because I made this question since last season, and around 80% of my guests answered someone from family. And in my case, I always answer, it's from my family too. My great grandmother is one of the most influential people in my life. Well, I didn't know my two grandmothers, because from my mother's side, she died when I was 3 years old. And from my father's side, she died when my father was 3 years old. But my great grandmother was she was born in 1914.
Oh wow!
And she raised in at a different time. Housewives were one of the only destiny of women, and she was a teacher, a school teacher, very smart and talented woman. She taught me many, many things, and she was a true matriarch. I
Oh,
think.
nice, good.
Well, she was very elegant, and she was really good at teaching, not only as a teacher, but teaching life stories for me. So I feel blessed to have her in my life. Unfortunately, when she passed away, I was 15 years old.
Oh no!
And yeah, it's 20 years. It happened 20 years ago, but it seems like yesterday.
Yeah, I
It
know,
was,
those are hard. Those are really hard.
yeah, very hard to me. And she died at a Christmas Eve, so it's uh, it's a tough it's a tough time to me, Christmas time.
Yeah.
But since I started doing some therapy, well, celebrating Christmas again. But yeah, I still miss her.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So, what do most people misunderstand about your work?
Oh, about my work. So right, it just depends on which work. I'm not working right now, but I will be, and it's a totally different career path. But it's only seasonal, so it's not something that I guess I wouldn't consider it a career. It's more of like a job, a seasonal
Mm-hmm.
job to pay the bills. But my time at the psychiatric hospital, doing my practicum, um, I would like people to know the power of medication when it comes to mental health and not to rule it out. I was kind of one of these people that were like, yeah, get the exercise and eat right and have a sense of community and all these things, and then you'll be out of your depression. That was kind of my thought. And all those things are valid. And all those things need to have deep consideration. What are you eating? Are you sleeping properly, which is very, very important? Do you have a sense of community? And are you stressed? All these things are really important. But for some people, they just simply have to be on medication, period. There's no amount of thinking your way out of it. I used to believe that. And I would see people that were sick, that were just really, really sick. And they would believe they were talking to God and that they were being haunted by demons and all these things. And we'd give them medications for like 2 days, and they'd be talking to you like we are talking now. You wouldn't even know, have no idea. And that's the only thing that'll work for them. Now, if they get off medication, they snap right back to where they left off, if not worse. So it's something they have to be on there the rest of their lives. But it certainly is working. There's no doubt about it. And when they're clear in their mind, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I did that. This is terrible. I would never want to do that again. And a few years later, they're like, oh, I haven't had an episode. So I stopped the medicine and come back in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to take the meds.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't want anybody to rule out medication, because I know big pharma, everybody kind of has this idea. And I was like that too. I was. And then I saw the power in medication. If people are looking for a miracle for some of these mental ailments, the miracle is in medication. I've seen it. I've seen it work time and time again. I'm not advocating for people just to go and say, I want to be on meds. So certainly look at something else first, but try to accept that maybe medication is the answer for you. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
that's great to hear that.
Yeah.
uh, when did you first become interested in your current career path?
Ooh, so it was so career path. I don't know where my career is going, to be honest. Like I've always wanted to work in social work field, kind of like humanitarian aid or anything like that. I've always wanted to do that. The turning point for me was working at the children's group home, and one of the doctors, they flew this guy up from Texas. He was like I don't know who he was, but they were saying, oh, this doctor's coming up from Texas. He's one of the leading doctors in this field, and I was like, okay, I don't know who he is. And he was trying to diagnose and kind of figure out what's going on with one of our kids. And I was there as support. And I tried everything with this kid, and it was failure after failure. He would just freak out. One time he stormed out, slamming doors, just screaming, and everything that I was trying to do for that kid just didn't work. And I felt ashamed, and I felt like a failure. I felt inadequate, incompetent, all those things. And then I almost cried. The doctor comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, when I'm done, I need to talk to you." And I was like, "This is it. I'm done. Like, I'm not working here anymore." Like, I thought he was just going to tell me, like, "You're a terrible, do not do this anymore. You know, like, you shouldn't be here." But what he said was, he goes, "You have something that cannot be taught in a school, and we need more people like you working in the field. Do not stop what you're doing no matter what. Just keep doing what you're doing. We need people like you." And then he's kind of went into like, "Hey, look, you're not going to work here for $15 an hour. You can make really good money. I make $120 an hour," or whatever he was making. "And, you know, look, they flew me up here and I get to do all these cool things. Do not give up on this. We need people like you." And then he kind of set the ball rolling down the hill. And as I was looking at more into it, it said, look into social work, go down social work and then go get your master's, and then you can do therapy. And when I was in social work, I started seeing like all these other programs to like do aid internationally. So I actually had a job or a job offer through the Peace Corps. And the one I was going for was in Costa Rica. And they said, "No, we have that filled. We'll assign you over here." I forgot where it was at. And I just said, "No, I don't want to do that." And I kind of wish I would have taken it. But my heart was kind of, after going to college, I was like, I want to kind of do international aid and travel around and help people less fortunate than I am. And so that's kind of where that all stemmed from.
Well, I told you this is my second career, and I meditated a lot about what is work. It's a very philosophical discussion. I won't start doing this discussion here, but well, I really think our generation, because if you are 40 years old, you are just 5 years older than me. So I think our generation is the first one to question this linear work. We need to study and then go to university and then work on that field until we get retired. And then when we retired, do what you love,
Right.
or do nothing. And just wait for death to come. I think it's so sad to live like this.
I agree. Yeah, you're basically dedicating your entire life to someone else. I mean, you're literally working. I mean, here I don't know what it's like where you're from, but here in America, we're not guaranteed time off. We don't get any guarantees of paid time off. They can literally just say you have to be at work 40 hours a week till we die, if they wanted to. There's no guarantee. So it's like, and then just like you said, that linear path is not, it sucks because by the time you're able to do the things that you want, you're not going to want to anymore. And I guarantee you 90% of those people that are at that age, in their 80s, and you ask them, what is one regret? They'd say, I wish I wouldn't have worked so much. Guarantee it. Because I can't imagine working 50 years for someone else. And then now I'm like, okay, this is for me. No, not doing it.
Oh, I'm Brazilian, and I'm from one of the most closed job markets of the world. It's really hard to access the job market.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And many people from baby boomer generation think like this. I know this from my parents. They really hated when I told them I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to have my own business from scratch. And they thought I didn't want to work at all. And I think I work much more than a 9 to 5. But my mental health comes first. I have some conditions, and I can't imagine myself following a 9 to 5 routine in somewhere I don't like for 20, 30 years. I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I did some internship. And when I started going to courts and looking at processes, uh, I don't know, I felt something in my neck. Oh, I will die here. I want to move from here. But when I finally dared to jump to a more creative field, it was hard at first, but now I feel so at ease.
Yeah, and you probably don't, when you do things, when you're making an episode or something, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like something that you do, that because that's who you are. This is something that you do, rather than, and it's for you. It's not for anybody else. It's for you. And I think that's the best thing about it.
Oh, absolutely. I run things on backstage are chaos, but I love this chaos. And the next question: what advice would you give to your younger self?
The advice, it's funny because we just put a podcast out today or yesterday. I think it was yesterday, and that was one of the questions. And I asked him, depends on the context. What age am I? And he said, when you're a teenager, because that's like one of the most pivotal points in your life, one of the most important parts of your life. And I agreed with him. And if I could go back to my younger self around 14, 15, I would just say, and this is under the presumption that I know that I'm talking to my older self, and that I have this knowledge. I would say, hey, man, whatever you're going to go through in these next couple of years, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And here are the things you're going to do. And this is the person you're going to be. And these are the kids you're going to have. And this is what your kids are like. And I wouldn't believe it because it would just sound unbelievable. I'd be like, yeah, right. There's no way you went here and did that. And, teaching English in Bangkok, sure, whatever. But I would say you're going to be okay. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard. But you're going to be all right. And because there was a time when I didn't think that. I didn't think everything was going to be all right. And I took some action to end it. And I'm glad it didn't work for me. I'm really glad it didn't. And maybe that little bit of advice would have gave me enough strength to be like, yeah, I'll be okay, and just push through it another day. One day at a time, you're going to survive. You're going to have a lot of bumps and bruises and scrapes and scars from it. And they're not going to go away for a long time. And you're going to have to work on it. And it's going to suck. But you're going to like the person at the other end. You're going to really like the other person at the other end. So that's what I would say.
Oh, likewise. I should tell my younger self, everything's going to be okay. You are not a failure if the whole package don't came to you. You are not a failure if you are not married. You are not a failure if you are not a mother. And you are not a failure if you don't work in something you didn't study primarily to. So don't worry, things will work.
And you get to decide. You get to decide if you're a failure. Nobody else gets to decide that for you. So don't let these other influences out here tell you how you got to live your life. You get to decide what is failure to you and what is success. And it can be anything from, hey, I got an apartment and I live on my own. It can be that basic and that's okay. Live your best life in that apartment. Or it can be something huge, whatever. It can be anything you want it to be. You decide your life, and you have control over your life.
Absolutely. And the last question from this round, before we finish go to the last round. Do you have any lucky charms or affirmations that you use to stay motivated and focused on your path?
Yeah, I never prescribe to any lucky charms or anything like that. Like a lucky rabbit's foot that I hold in my pocket or a coin that I rub, and I don't buy any of those superstitions. I don't think there's any spirit, higher entity out there asserting their will, and I have to talk to karma and all that stuff. I don't believe in any of that at all. Some of the things that I do say to myself though is like, nothing's a failure. Go for it. Like I owned a business and it didn't do anything. It didn't go anywhere. I mean, it was a reflection of my work ethic, because I just didn't want the business. Maybe could have went somewhere. I just didn't like the idea of me having to do this all the time, and so it dissolved. I just let it dissolve. And could have it been something? Could I have been? Yes, of course. But I was like, that just wasn't for me. That wasn't where I was supposed to do. It didn't feel right. It's not a failure. Do the things you want to do and try it. And if it doesn't work out, oh fucking well. Who cares? Like, it's gonna happen. These things happen all the time to everybody. Learn from it, try something different, and then find the thing that is your thing. And it can be anything. You might want to work it. You might want to own a steel mill for all I know. You never know until you do it. I never thought I'd write a book. I never thought I'd make music, and I like it. I actually genuinely enjoy it. So I continue to do it. I found my place. A little bit of income that I get from it is great. It's just a little bit of a cherry on top of it. But could it be something big? Yeah. But I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I like it. And I had to work at it and fail and work at it and I fall to pieces and do that repeatedly until I finally landed where I like to be.
Oh, well, I'm Christian, but I'm also but I'm not that kind of fundamentalist. The ones who blind themselves for religion. I do pray every day, but I don't think prayers are magic. Many people say, "Oh, I want to pray for a new car, for a new house." Oh, I'm not this kind of person. I really use prayers as my meditation, my mindful moment to wake up and live one more day, one day after another. Not try not to accelerate things and overreact. That's why I have this moment, just for it. And indeed, Lucky Charms to me are so childish. Some some rituals are funny, but well, I don't particularly enjoy Lucky Charms. And now let's go to the last round of questions. Oh, this episode is so nice, and I really like to talk to you.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm glad you had me on.
What's next for you, Justin? What upcoming projects or goals do you have, either in your creative pursuits or personal life? And how do you plan to continue? Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. So for me, the creative pursuit, I do want to continue the Julius Edwards saga indefinitely, as far as I can think of. I have all these really good ideas, or these ideas that I want to share, Right now it's there are ghosts in these pages. Five Tales That Follow You Home at Night is the first book published by the Edwards family. The next book is How Gods Are Made, and I just want to kind of continue this lore of Julius Edwards, so that I will be, creating more books in time, and I'm hoping that it can kind of grow into other things. Maybe even maybe a channel of hauntings or something like that. Who knows? The sky's the limit. Music, I will always create music. And, the goal is to produce at least one album every month, but I'm not going to be able to do that, come when I start working, because I'll be working a lot. But the ultimate goal in the end is to have accumulated enough money to retire in the next 5 years. And I have done pretty well in the stock market, and if things just keep kind of going for me the way that they are, I don't think that goal is unachievable. But I got to keep myself in check, because I've been down this road. I've had it all. I had a house. I had like a 3-bedroom house, 2 cars, and everything, and I lost it all because I got greedy. Very, very simple. And I never thought I would be. I never considered myself the greedy type, but when you start getting a lot of money, it's easy to kind of fall into that. And I did, and I lost it all. And it was a very hard lesson. It was a very hard lesson, but a very valuable lesson, because I lost myself. When I had that money, I lost who I was. I was not the same person. And my hope is that I'll be in the same spot I was a few years ago and be the person that I am now, but able to work for myself and how I want to work. I work more, like I think you said it, this entrepreneurship that you took, you end up working more than a regular 9 to 5. And when I wasn't teaching, I was working, and I was working more than I was any other time in my life. And it didn't feel anything like work. Then when the summer came, I was working more during the summer than I was when I was working at the school, because I liked doing it. And that's where I want to be. I want to work when it's 100% serving me, nobody else.
Great. So the second part, how do you plan to continue engaging with your diverse interests and experiences?
Yeah, I'm going to, this job is temporary, it's seasonal. So I think I got 3 good years doing this work, and it'll provide me enough to let me, after those 3 years, I'll be completely debt free. I will have, I'll be able to, support myself for a while after everything's said and done. And my hope is just to find that answer somewhere through trial and error. Might not find it in music. I might not find it in my book, but I might find it somewhere else. Who knows? But I'm going to keep trying until I find it. And, I'm going to continue traveling. I have somebody that I'm seeing in Thailand. She's great, and I love her to death. And I just want to create memories with her and start just build and work on that, and maintain my relationship with my kids the best that I can. And really, that's all I need. I just really need those things, her, them, and me. That's the priorities. Or let me put it in order: me, then us as the kids. I'm number one. I'm number one. But I mean that in a it's selfish, yes, but I mean that with like a lowercase s, not a big, not in a big way where it's harmful. I have to make sure that I'm taken care of and my needs are met before I can be there for anybody else. And I've noticed when I do that, when I make sure, hey, is Justin okay? And when I'm okay, everything flourishes around me. My relationships go really well. My kids are talking to me more. They want to be around me more. So I have to make sure I'm doing well before I can start focusing on anybody else. Just like on the plane, when the thing they explain, put your mask on. If we're wrecking, put your mask on first, and then help your neighbor. That's how it has to be for me, anyways.
Oh, I heard a few weeks ago from a physician, the less you pursue your interests, the more they come to you. So
Yeah,
uh, don't pursue your interests too much. They will come naturally to you.
that's
And
good.
then
I
it's
like
like
that a lot.
that.
Yeah.
uh, well, today we had the pleasure to have you about your diverse career, life in Thailand. I wish you a happy return to Thailand and creative pursuits, solo
Thank you.
parenting, and the importance of getting to know our neighbors. So, do you have a final message to our listeners?
Yeah, I first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me on. If there's ever a time, please let me know. I'd love to come back on. It's a good. It's all fun, and I love doing these kind of things. And for the listener out there, man, just whatever you're going through, I hope this you find this is inspirational. No matter how hard it may seem, do the right things, and the right things will come. I can promise that. And as long as you keep and you can persevere and power through it and work hard, you can get through it. No matter how big of obstacle you may think it is, you can overcome it. Just don't give up, because I was there. I tried to give up. It didn't work for me, thank God. But I'm so glad it didn't, and I can almost guarantee that's the same for you. If you just can power through it.
It's wonderful. Uh, it reminds us that resilience, creativity, and community, they have its power.
Hmm.
And last, and this one is the bonus question, the most important to me. DKLA stores are always open to you. Would you come back one day if you could?
Absolutely. Anytime you let me know, I'll make time to come back. I would love, and maybe you can share a little bit more about Brazil to me,
Okay.
because I don't, that's one place I haven't been. I've been to Central America, but I've never been much further south
Yeah.
than, say, Costa Rica. So, Brazil uh, is somewhere that I've never really, hasn't been on my radar, but I would love to hear more about it. I know a lot of people love traveling down there, and yeah, I'd love to come back.
Oh, and I love to show my country beyond the
All right,
cliches.
good.
It's my mission. And this season calls Conecta means se conecte.
Today, we had the pleasure of speaking with Justin Felder. His journey reminds us of the value of resilience, creativity, and community. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's get inspired and engaged.
Since 2015, this is me on my other side of life.
Determined by the unresidence of living.
In a lonely corner of South America.
Back in the already distant 2015.
I had only stepped in 0.2% of planet Earth. I still have a small bit of followers on social media and a small circle of friends in my offline life. However, today I'm reaching more than 30,000 ears. I've brought 27 incredible guests from various countries around the world to you over 26 weeks of season 8, and I share everything I know and have in my heart to reach yours. In other words, in the citoyen du monde.